If you had a time machine and the goal of ruining skateboard history by taking credit for a trick, what would you do? This topic was inspired by Tim on Patreon, and there is a second part a little bit later that makes it even crazier. But for now, if I could take credit for a trick that I can actually do, I would have to go back to the 1980s. And the obvious choice might be to do a ollie or a kickflip and try to take credit for that one. But I think this game would be a lot more interesting if I did something a bit harder. Something that would imply that I could already do kickflips and ollies, maybe even years ago. And I picked 360 flips. And not just a normal 360 flip, but 360 flips in all 4 stances. Now I can do them in 3 stances pretty easy. Switch ones, I've only done a couple of them, so I would have to do some practice and training for this, but it would be worth it. But how do I get people to believe that I actually did it? There is a problem with shooting a time travel video though, and it's that movies exist. You've all seen one that takes place way back in the past at some point. All you really need to do is wear period correct clothes, park a period correct car in the background, and it's pretty convincing. And anyone could do that with $1,000 and an eBay account. If all you had to do was buy some old school shoes, some 80s clothes, an old school camera with a VHS tape in it, and you could go shoot this exact clip in front of an old building in your town, and it would look pretty convincing. But no one would actually believe that you went back in time, so you're going to have to prove it. And here's how I might do it. On my way back in time, I would stop a day short, and I would grab a newspaper from that day and then keep going back that one extra day. With the newspaper, I could find an event that's going to happen that's going to have a picture taken. I can use the contents of the article to figure out where that was, go there, stand there with my skateboard and the exact same clothes I'm going to have on, and boom, I've got proof that this guy who looks just like me existed back there at that exact time frame. The only problem is that would be relatively easy to fake as well. You could find an old newspaper, scan it, and Photoshop yourself into the picture. Now, your version is actually real, but nobody is going to go to the library of the town where the newspaper came out and find a scan of the old one on film. They'll have it, but no one's going to do that effort. They're just going to dismiss it as fake. So what else could you do? The workaround is to get yourself in a video that already exists. And my choice is skateboarding in the 80s from 1982. You can see me review Rodney Mullen's part in that video right there. But being in a video that already exists would sidestep the issues of it being real. And you could get to it with a little bit of work. You would have to find exactly where and exactly when they were filming for it, but with enough time and effort, you could do that, and you could show up and just crash the set and do some tricks. And if your tricks are good enough, there's no reason they wouldn't use it. Maybe it'd be in the intro, maybe in the credits. You might not get your own part, but there's a decent chance that you could get yourself in there, and you could even provide a name that might pop up on the screen or be in the credits. I have a plan for that too. I'll talk about that in a second. But for now, let's get into the second part of the scenario here, which is, what if you weren't limited to tricks that you could actually do? What if you could do anything that's ever been done on a skateboard? How does that change things? So you might think, hey, why don't I go back to 1963 and do a nollie late flip crooked grind while JFK gets shot in the background? That would be an amazing video to make. Unbelievable. In fact, it would actually be unbelievable. People think the footage of the moon landing is fake. They're definitely going to believe that a video of you doing an out-of-time trick during an important event could not possibly be real. So we have to rein it in a little bit. Mike McGill invented the McTwist in 1984, or did he? If I have my way, I go back to the skateboarding in the 80s video and I do a varial McTwist, showing that I can do not just a normal one, but an advanced version of the trick 2 years before it was actually invented, stealing that legendary skateboarding moment for myself. But if I actually did all this, what would the fallout be? Immediately, all our current skate heroes like Rodney Mullen, Tony Hawk, Gons, they become less important because all of their accomplishments, all of the things that we've seen them do, we know that there are other people in the background doing stuff that's even harder. Yes, Tony Hawk invented all these tricks, but maybe there was some other guy who did them way earlier and way better. And it would really make it harder for a pro skater to claim credit for something, knowing that there's at least one other guy out there who was even better than them. And I don't think that this is actually a positive thing, but for the purposes of this question, my goal is to bring myself as much glory as possible. The only problem left is I'm 36. And the idea that I have footage of myself as an adult from 40 years ago is a little hard to believe, but I have a plan for that. But first, I want to remind you that you could submit questions like this for yourself by going to radratvideo.com. There are some dirt cheap shirts on there, and there is a form where you can submit your question to be considered for this series. You can also submit yours through Patreon like Tim did, where you have a guaranteed response. What do I do about that age gap? When I record these tricks, I give the cameraman my name as RadRat, and hopefully that shows up in the credits or on screen. And now my channel name is a reference to an anonymous skateboarding god, and I just so happen to look exactly like him. And that would probably be worth a subscribe.